The movie initially begins with Kia, a motivated and career-driven woman, enjoying herself at a wedding reception. Just as she's observing everyone around her, the bride, who also happens to be her best friend, pulls her to the dance floor. Kia is hesitant at first but quickly joins in and starts dancing. Moments later, she walks away from the dance floor, clearly bored and distressed. Some of the guests try to include her in the celebration, but she instantly shies away while making all sorts of excuses. In reality, Kia hates weddings and the misogyny that comes along with them. She watches as her best friend's parents celebrate their daughter's wedding instead of her ambitions. Kia even overhears them talking about how a successful man always needs a loyal woman behind him. This instantly causes her to roll her eyes, but she keeps quiet. Everyone at the wedding only talks about how successful the groom is, which really infuriates her. Eventually, the bride's mother notices Kia just standing in a corner. While smiling, she asks Kia to enjoy herself and dance. That's when the latter turns off the music and pretends to talk loudly on the phone. She then taunts everyone present there by commenting on how a woman is nothing but a man's support system. She then claims that our society always aims to kill a woman's dreams, ambitions, and career and tether her to a man in order to take care of his needs. After she's done ranting, everyone at the wedding just stares at her. However, this doesn't bother Kia in the slightest. She just smiles and walks out of the wedding as if nothing ever happened. The scene now shifts to Kia, who appears to be in an airplane. She's engrossed in her work. Suddenly, she hears sniffling and crying. Confused, Kia turns around and sees a man sobbing profusely. Thinking that something might be wrong, she asks the man if he's okay. However, that's when the guy, whose name is Kabir, tells Kia that he just misses his mom. It turns out that today is his late mother's birthday. Kia feels bad and quickly offers her condolences. The two then introduce themselves and start talking to one another. After learning more about his mother, Kia advises Kabir to celebrate her birthday rather than just sit and cry. She claims that it's what his mother would have wanted. Kabir agrees to the request, and soon the two go to a bar and celebrate. There, Kia asks Kabir more about his life. In response, the latter tells Kia that his father is Kumar Bansal, the most successful builder in the country. Needless to say, Kia is stunned, as she herself aims to become quite successful in the business world. While drinking, she praises Kabir and talks about how he must have a lot of wealth. Shortly after, Kabir confesses to Kia that his relationship with his father is really bad. It turns out that he doesn't want to take over his father's massive empire at all. He further adds that he has absolutely no interest in his father's business or his money. When Kia hears this, she is utterly flabbergasted. She cannot comprehend what Kabir is saying, so she starts to mock him instead. She goes on to tease him by saying he doesn't even need to work because he can always have a lavish life with his daddy's money. Kabir doesn't respond to that and asks Kia what she does instead. At that moment, Kia proudly tells him that she's a marketing manager who will soon become the CEO of a company. Hearing this, Kabir wishes her all the best and praises her for her hard work. Moments later, Kia asks Kabir what his dreams and ambitions are. However, before Kabir can even answer, Kia starts panicking because her phone is nowhere to be found. Kabir then takes this opportunity to get her phone number and ultimately helps her find her phone. The next day, Kabir calls Kia and starts flirting with her. He then asks her out for some more drinks. That night, the two meet up once again, and their conversation continues. Still confused, Kia asks Kabir why he doesn't want his father's business. That's when the latter replies that he actually wants to be like his mother, who was a housewife. Kia is stunned and has no idea how to respond. The following day, Kabir calls Kia and asks her out for drinks once again. Kia is initially hesitant but agrees nonetheless. As usual, she goes to the nearby bar and meets up with Kabir. There, she asks him more about his weird dream and asks why a topper like him would just throw their careers away to become a house husband. In response, Kabir asserts that he doesn't like businessmen because they never have time for anything else. They spend their entire lives working hard just to end up in an expensive hospital with chronic diseases caused by stress. Hearing this, Kia just smiles and starts to debunk all of Kabir's opinions. She claims that he's full of SHT and just a lazy person who doesn't want to work hard. She even goes on to tell Kabir that there's no pleasure in just sitting at home doing absolutely nothing. This comment angers Kabir, as housewives don't just stay at home while doing nothing. Frustrated, he tells Kia that his mother was an artist who made sure everyone in the family was happy and healthy. Kabir slowly starts to get more and more agitated while talking about how no one even bothers to ask a housewife if she's okay. Despite graduating from the top business school in the country with distinction, Kabir only wishes to become like his mother, who was nothing but a kind soul. This aim stems from the fact that people and husbands in general never appreciate their wives, who cook and clean all day. They don't consider her as someone who also works and gets tired. Instead, they mock her and treat her like an object just because they don't have certifications to prove their worth. Finally, Kabir slams the table and confesses that the only reason his mother died early was because his father never appreciated her. He always mocked her by saying that she just stays at home while doing absolutely nothing. This caused her to have a ton of problems, which ultimately led to her early demise. Enraged, Kabir storms out of the bar, leaving Kia burdened with unfathomable guilt. For the next couple of days, Kia tries her hardest to contact Kabir, and apologize. However, he simply doesn't respond back. Finally, after groveling for quite a while, Kabir calls Kia and asks her to meet up with him. The latter readily agrees and prepares to meet him. The following day, Kabir and Kia meet up at an old train exhibit and have a lot of fun. While eating, Kia confesses to Kabir that she was raised by a single mother as her dad had passed away when she was just a kid. Eventually, the two get to learn a lot more about each other and realize that they are a perfect match. Since Kabir's preference is to stay at home, Kia could climb up the corporate ladder without any hurdles. Because of this, Kabir proposes that they get married. However, Kia immediately gets uncomfortable and accuses him of using her as his scapegoat. In his defense, Kabir claims that he can help build a nice home while Kia can focus on her job. That's when the latter exclaims that she doesn't love him. Hearing this, Kabir pulls Kia close to him and stares deeply into her eyes. He then asks her again if she doesn't want a future with him. Kia almost gets lost in his eyes, but eventually pulls away. As time progresses, the two spend a lot of time together. They gradually fall in love and decide to get married while establishing a relationship where Kabir handles the household while Kia acts as the main breadwinner. The couple quickly receive Kia's mother's blessing. However, when they go to meet Mr. Bansal, they get nothing but insults. After learning about Kabir and Kia's relationship dynamics, Kumar calls his son impotent and a loser for choosing to stay at home. He even goes as far as to yell at Kabir for trying to survive off of his wife's salary, which really infuriates Kia. Enraged, she defends Kabir and retorts that a real man doesn't need to prove his manliness. A real man is the one who takes care of his family and stands up for himself when needed. With that, she grabs Kabir's hand and storms out of the house. After the incident, Kabir and Kia get closer than ever before. Soon after, they get married and venture into a new chapter of their lives together. The next morning, Kabir gets up really early and cleans the entire house. He tidies up every single nook and cranny and even prepares breakfast for the family. Shortly after, Kia rushes to her office, where all her coworkers wish her a happy married life. Back at home, while Kabir is watering the plants, the maid comes in, and instead of cleaning, she just starts watching TV casually. It's evident that she doesn't work at all. Kabir quickly hides in a corner and observes her carefully. After watching TV for a while, the maid asks her boyfriend to sneak in so that they can make love. Within moments, her lover walks in, and the two immediately start making out. The couple then walk into Kia's bedroom while Kabir comes out of hiding and waits for them to finish. When the maid finally exits the bedroom, she screams out in shock. After seeing Kabir standing right before her, she apologizes profusely and begs him not to tell Kia. Kabir agrees but orders her to work properly and come in way earlier than she usually does. The maid readily agrees to all the conditions and instantly starts cleaning the house. Later that day, Kia and her mother finally return home to see that Kabir has prepared a full-course meal for them. Needless to say, they're thoroughly impressed. Meanwhile, Kabir also relishes the fact that he's being appreciated and spends some quality time with his family. Soon after, Kabir asks Kia for a monthly allowance in order to take care of the house. The latter hands him a wad of cash and wishes him all the best. From then on, Kabir carefully budgets the money he has and renovates the entire house. He then cooks delicious meals every single day and turns his house into a beautiful home. Not only that, he gets in touch with all the stay-at-home wives in his building and gossips with them. Eventually, he gets invited to kitty parties, where he becomes best friends with all his neighboring women. Meanwhile, Kia stays focused on her work and does her best to get several promotions. Her mother also manages several NGOs without any kind of stress. A couple days later, Kia invites all her coworkers over for dinner, as they seem really excited to meet Kabir. The latter quickly agrees and makes sure the entire house is clean and tidy. Just as the guests are about to come in, Kia informs Kabir that she has lied to her coworkers. It turns out that she has actually told her colleagues that Kabir is a book writer. Hearing this, Kabir asks Kia if she's ashamed of him. Unable to respond, Kia simply tells him that the world will never understand their relationship. She then immediately apologizes to him and consoles him by saying that she's really proud of him. In response, Kabir just smiles and goes on with his chores. Soon after, all the guests started filing in. They all talk to Kabir and have a great time. While Kia is busy welcoming the guests, her boss walks up to Kabir and starts praising her. He then asks the latter what his book is about. Thankfully, Kia overhears the conversation and decides to make things right. She announces to everyone present there that her husband is an artist who takes care of the house so that she can work peacefully. She further goes to add that, even though he's not writing a book, he will definitely have one written about him one day. Hearing this, all the guests start clapping loudly and congratulating Kia for having such a supportive husband. The rest of the party goes quite smoothly, and everyone has a wonderful time. The next day, Kabir goes over to his father's house and ends up receiving a bunch of insults. Upon seeing Kabir, Kumar instantly becomes furious and accuses him of ruining his reputation and turning him into a laughingstock. However, Kabir just brushes him off and grabs a couple of his belongings before walking away. A couple days later, Kabir and Kia travel to Dubai in order to attend an important marketing conference held by Kia's company. As soon as they arrive at the place, Kia becomes engrossed in work while Kabir starts hanging out with all the other spouses present there. He visits several beaches, malls, and historical sites with his new friends. But despite all this, he soon starts to miss Kia and tries to spend some time with her as well. That very night, the couple walks into a business party, where Kia immediately approaches her boss and starts having a conversation with him. She doesn't even bother introducing Kabir to anyone present there, which really hurts him. After a while, Kabir walks up to Kia and tries to talk to her. However, much to his dismay, she doesn't even acknowledge him properly. Now incredibly frustrated, he simply heads back to his room and falls asleep. Eventually, Kia returns during the middle of the night. Kabir quietly opens the door but doesn't really say anything. After seeing him so upset, Kia tries to apologize, but Kabir just taunts her instead. Out of anger, he asks her to go ahead and sleep with her boss in order to be more successful. Now furious, Kia completely loses her temper and tightly slaps Kabir across the face. The two then get into a big fight. Kia repeatedly hits Kabir out of frustration, but the latter just holds her close and kisses her. Soon enough, they calm down and end up getting intimate. They then make up and apologize to one another for their behavior. Shortly after, Kabir and Kia return to India and celebrate their one-year anniversary. They continue to spend their lives peacefully until one morning when Kia's mother gets diagnosed with very high blood pressure. This ultimately causes Kabir to switch to healthier alternatives at home. One day, while Kabir is busy cleaning the house, he hears a knock on the door. The person turns out to be none other than the owner of the flat. Kabir immediately lets him in and asks if he's there for the rest. That's when the owner sadly tells Kabir that he's actually selling the entire house, and that they'll need to vacate as soon as possible. Needless to say, Kabir is utterly devastated, as he had spent so much time renovating their house. When Kia finally returns home, Kabir informs her about the auction notice, and, as a solution, advises her to simply buy the whole house. However, Kia just laughs and says that the entire house is way too expensive, and that there's no way they would be able to afford it. Hearing this, Kabir gets really upset and thinks of ways to earn more money. He thinks about working for a couple years and earning enough to afford the house, but that would ultimately send him into a downward spiral of greed and competition. Having grown deeply attached to the house, Kabir brainstorms endlessly, desperately searching for a way out. He calculates all the household expenses and thinks of ways to make extra money. This would then help them put the house on EMI. The very next day, Kabir holds a kitten party at his house and invites all the neighboring ladies. He then takes this opportunity to advertise his fitness plan. Kabir very cleverly proposes that he'll help all his friends get their dream bodies. In return, they'll only have to pay a small fee every session. All the stay-at-home wives present there instantly agree to Kabir's plan. They get ready every single morning and work out with Kabir as their trainer. As promised, Kabir helps all the ladies lose weight and become more confident. Soon enough, his plan flourishes, and Kia successfully applies for a mortgage. While Kia travels to different states and promotes her company, Kabir continues training the neighboring ladies. Things finally begin to look good. However, this doesn't last long. One day, Kabir and his mother-in-law are talking when Kia furiously barges in. She storms into the bathroom without uttering a single word. Worried, Kabir asks her what's wrong, only for Kia to reply that she's pregnant. It's evident that she isn't happy with the pregnancy, as this would massively affect her career in the long run. Kia breaks down and blames Kabir for messing up. She calls him a chauvinist whose aim is to get his wife pregnant so that she can just stay at home. Kabir tries to calm Kia down, but she just locks herself inside the bathroom and cuts everyone off. Anxious and scared, Kabir runs to the store and gets a couple more pregnancy tests, to be sure. He hands them all to Kia and asks her to use them. That way, they could be sure about the baby. Initially, Kia is hesitant but agrees with him. She goes through 5 more tests, and much to her surprise, almost all of them come out negative. Needless to say, Kia is relieved and apologizes to Kabir for lashing out. Soon enough, Kia stops worrying and focuses on her work. She pitches multiple marketing ideas to her company, which get a lot of appreciation. Eventually, Kia's marketing strategies bring her company to the top, and she gets promoted to vice president. Even though the news itself was quite good, Kia started to get a lot busier. She now has a lot of responsibilities, ultimately causing her to spend very little time at home. Initially, Kabir tries to brush this off and supports Kia. However, this soon takes a turn for the worse. While Kia receives a lot of success and attention, Kabir becomes forgotten. Despite this, he tries his best to help Kia with her career. Kia continues to climb the social ladder and receives numerous accolades. She even gets invited to multiple interviews. However, she gradually forgets that she has a life outside of business as well. During one of her several interviews, Kia talks about her relationship with Kabir and appreciates him for helping her achieve her dreams. When the interviewer learns more about Kabir, she gets extremely fascinated. Because of this, she invites Kabir for an interview as well. Kabir is initially against the interview, but after much pestering from Kia, he reluctantly agrees. In the interview, Kabir talks about how he loves to support his wife. He goes on to say that it doesn't matter if a man takes on a traditionally feminine role. The whole world has a set perspective on how men and women should act in society, but just because of that doesn't mean that the idea is fully correct. A man is fully capable of handling the house without ego or jealousy, while a woman is fully capable of becoming successful. In the end, the interviewer becomes thoroughly impressed and immediately broadcasts the interview, which becomes a massive success. The interview quickly goes viral, and everyone starts to learn about Kabir. All of Kia's colleagues congratulate her for having such a great husband. Kia is initially grateful, but when she starts to realize that people are now focused more on her husband than her, she starts to get a little distraught. Everywhere she goes, people come up to her and talk about how supportive her husband is. This makes Kia furious because her achievements are starting to get overlooked. Gradually, she starts to get annoyed by Kabir and argues with him over small things. Meanwhile, Kabir starts to get multiple interview offers. He even gets invited to TEDx, where he talks about gender equality and modern marriages. Soon enough, he starts to get a lot busier because of all the seminars and interviews he has to attend. Additionally, he even starts to get contracts for advertisements, brand promotions, and cooking shows. His fame skyrockets. Unfortunately, this doesn't sit right with Kia at all. She becomes annoyed at the fact that despite working day and night, all she got were a couple of awards and appreciation. However, Kabir had become an overnight sensation simply because he had taken up a feminine gender role. Shortly after, Kabir gets published on the front page of several magazines and even receives numerous awards. This slowly starts to take a toll on his marriage as his busy schedule causes him to stay away from home for much of the day. He doesn't get enough time to do all his household chores, which ultimately causes Kia to become upset. She gets annoyed by the attention and following he has gained. At one point, her own company offers to have Kabir cast in their ad, but Kia straight up declines it. She makes up an excuse, saying Kabir doesn't like fame. However, when the latter learns about the ad and agrees to do it, Kia becomes annoyed. She stays silent as Kabir gains a lot of popularity. Now that her fame is almost gone, Kia starts to become resentful of her own husband. She despises the fact that Kabir has slowly started to take over her career and success. One night, while driving home, Kia starts to taunt Kabir by saying that he must love his newfound fame. Initially, Kabir doesn't understand Kia's behavior, as the only reason he had become such a sensation was because she had forced him into his first interview. It was never his intention to overshadow her. Rather, he just wanted her to have more publicity. Kabir tries to reason by asserting that he just wants to spread awareness. However, this comment just makes Kia lash out at him. Furious, she accuses him of marketing his own life and using their relationship to get recognition and publicity. When Kabir hears this, he becomes extremely hurt and stops speaking to Kia. He even puts an end to all his public appearances. As time progresses, Kia gets a golden opportunity to go to New York for a management program. Even though she is initially hesitant, Kia takes up the offer and prepares for her journey. Back home, Kia's mother complains that she'll miss her daughter a lot. That's when Kabir reassures her by saying that he'll always stay with her, no matter what. Hurt and depressed, he sadly expresses that his job is to take care of the house and not travel the world. When Kia hears this, she realizes what a big mistake she has made. That night, she apologizes to Kabir and asks him to accompany her on the journey. However, the latter declines the offer and says that he'll just make himself useful by taking care of his mother-in-law. Kia tries her hardest to redeem herself, but Kabir completely shuts her out. Slowly, the two start to get more and more distant. Eventually, Kia leaves for New York alone while Kabir stays back and takes care of the house. Both of them miss each other a lot but make no effort to repair their relationship. One day, Kabir gets an invitation to his college reunion. After realizing that he hasn't enjoyed himself for quite a while, he decides to go and have some fun. There, he meets up with all his friends and, for a split second, forgets about all his problems. During the reunion, one of his friends asks him to do another interview. Kabir instantly turns down the offer, but after all his friends pressure him to do it, he reluctantly agrees. Soon after, the interview goes viral and is broadcast on TV. Because of its popularity, famed movie actress Jaya Bachchan comes across it and is instantly impressed by Kabir. She makes her husband, the legendary actor Amitabh Bachchan, also watch the interview. After seeing his wife so inspired by Kabir, Mr. Bachchan becomes a little grumpy. However, when Jaya asks him to invite Kabir over, he can't help but do as she says. Shortly after, Kabir gets invited to Amitabh and Jaya Bachchan's residence. Excited, he calls Kia and proceeds to share the great news with her. But instead of being happy, Kia starts insulting Kabir. She calls him a liar and says that the only reason he stayed back was to attend more seminars. Hearing this, Kabir tries to defend himself, but Kia just hangs up. Realizing that there's no way Kia would ever understand him, Kabir becomes upset but tries to move on. The very next day, he goes and meets the legendary actors. He talks about his life opinions and shares his perspective with them. During their meeting, Jaya is highly impressed by Kabir and his story with Kia. Just as Kabir is about to leave, Jaya gives him her blessings and even hands him a gift for Kia. Kabir happily takes it and bids Jaya and Amitabh goodbye. While returning home, Kabir smiles to himself and reminisces about the moments spent with Jaya. He whips out his phone only to find 20 missed calls from Kia. Kabir starts panicking immediately and calls Kia back. It turns out that Kia's mother had been taken to the hospital after collapsing. Scared and anxious, Kabir rushes to the hospital while Kia instantly flies back to India. Shortly after, Kabir reaches the hospital and checks up on his mother-in-law, who had fainted due to low blood pressure. Thankfully, her condition had stabilized. When Kia finally reaches the hospital, she insults Kabir and yells at him for not being there for her mother. The latter desperately tries to reason with her. However, Kia doesn't listen to him at all. Instead, she calls him a fraud and a manipulator for using her to become famous. Enraged, she accuses him of playing with her life and acting like a role model to become successful. In the end, Kia calls Kabir a con artist and screams at him to get out of her life. Feeling dejected, Kabir doesn't say anything to Kia and returns home. Meanwhile, Kia goes back to her mother's ward and notices the gift from Jaya Bachchan. She opens the little box to reveal a letter written by Jaya, in which she congratulates the pair. She mentions that to be a man who maintains a household rather than working is a brave choice, but to be the wife of such a man is an even harder choice. In the end, she congratulates and appreciates Kia for being such an inspiration. When Kia finally reads the entire letter, she realizes what she had actually done. On the other hand, Kabir packs up all this stuff and prepares to leave for Chandigarh. Meanwhile, Kia breaks down after comprehending how badly she had treated Kabir. She confesses everything to her mother, who calls her out for her jealousy, and says that it is the reason for the couple's innumerable fights. Now determined to get him back, Kia rushes out of the hospital and gets on the same plane Kabir is on. There, she sneakily sits beside him and cries quietly. After finally getting his attention, Kia apologizes to Kabir for her behavior and temperament. The couple eventually reconciles and finds a happy compromise. They then celebrate their second anniversary and proceed to start over. While they're celebrating their anniversary, they hear a knock on the door. It's none other than Mr. Bansal. Once there, he apologizes for his past behavior and appreciates Kia's business skills and drive. He decides to make her the CEO of his company. The movie finally concludes with the family finally being united as one.